Okay, folks, this video is not a recommendation because I haven't used this for anything yet. I am just getting it out. It's arrived. I wanted you to see how nice the package was at least. These are kids' glasses that are supposed to help with migraines. I have a son on the spectrum, and if this is the first time you're hearing this, you might want to check this out because it's not really common awareness in public discussion. But autism is an autoimmune disorder, and a lot of autoimmune symptoms will be found very often for individuals that are diagnosed with autism. So one of those common struggles can be headaches, migraines. My son deals with them daily, especially in the last 4 years. It began to become a serious problem for him exactly 4 years ago when the pandemic took off. And if you haven't heard this yet either, EBV is a virus that 90% of the population has, some strain of. And years before the pandemic hit, there was research done showing how corona and EBV work synergistically. EBV will also hijack cortisol in your body, and it will use it to replicate faster, and it just goes in and out of dormancy. So this is tied to inflammation that a person gets from any autoimmune disease, why they might be more likely to get more sick in some cases, and of course, setbacks, regressions in the autism experience. Autism affects people differently because an autoimmune disorder affects people differently. And depending on when and how and where it begins to affect your body, it will produce different symptoms, but there is a lot of overlap. And there's a lot of overlap with CPTSD. If you haven't looked at that yet, it's something else to investigate. Very often, headaches and migraines will be a common struggle and symptom for people who study with post-traumatic stress disorder. For caregivers of those on the spectrum, it is very likely that they have PTSD. That's very common. Research has shown that often parents of children on the spectrum have the same PTSD symptoms of a person who's an active combat soldier. I say all this to say, if you're experiencing more headaches, if you're experiencing more stress, hives, chronic fatigue, sensitivity to sound and lights, what we typically recognize as symptoms of an autoimmune disease or disorder, and what we also see often with people on the spectrum themselves, is it has a significant overlap with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder as well. So there's a lot of connections in this material. It's a lot of interesting connections. What I'm learning to do is to try to find as many supports as I can to reduce the stress of some of the symptoms, because viruses in our body often like to hijack the cortisol in our body the way that EBV does. And if we can reduce the stress, it's not that we're eliminating all of the problems, but we're giving our body more of a chance to heal. We're giving our brain a chance to move out of the limbic system back into our cortex, regulate our parasympathetic system, heal our vagus nerve, and recover. I know a lot of people will get mad at me for saying this because so much of the discussion around autism today surrounds the idea that this is a permanent identity for somebody and that you cannot heal or recover. And we say that actually about a lot of things. Have you noticed that? Like we label somebody with depression. We label somebody with an anxiety disorder. We label them bipolar. And it's if a person is given a life sentence. That's not to say that we should ignore these issues. That's not to say we shouldn't have compassion. That's not to say we shouldn't be aware of what symptoms go with this. But in order to give ourselves hope and a chance to heal and become as successful as we can be, whatever that looks like for each of us, right? Because it will be different for each of us. I think it's better to not think of ourselves as stagnant categories. And so what I'm trying to do is to get supports for myself as a caregiver and a person who does struggle with CPTSD. And this goes back to issues way before I had a child of my own. So it's not like I'm blaming my child for my CPTSD. He did not cause it. I had this since I was a child. I dealt with trauma since childhood. And it's just something that got worsened under the stress of parenthood because I hadn't processed it. And that's the key issue. It's not that it's not like we can say, oh, I want to get to this goal where I have nothing to process. I have no issues. Well, then you're probably not living, right? Because we're always going to confront new challenges. But we do want to become more aware of what triggers us and what we're struggling with. And there's no shame in that. So simple things like glasses, even if you don't have headaches, if you are experiencing sensitivity to light in any way, if it's overwhelming you, like I get overwhelmed in some stores because of the lighting, this is something to consider. I just ordered Calm 2 earplugs, something else that I'm hoping to do a review on. And we're going to see how that helps, because I want to reduce the stress of noise in my area. And if it works for my son, I'll let you all know. And I'm going to let you know how this goes too. But here's the package of some kids' migraine glasses. It's such a nice package. This is so fancy. Look at this. This is nice. Okay, there's 2 pairs in here. Let me see if I can do this one-handed. And one of them is supposed to be for like indoors when you're on the computer to kind of reduce the stress of, internal light, indoors light stimulation. Let me see if I can get this out. This looks nice. Feels nice. Okay,